I call to order the June 2026 meeting of the Mission Fulfillment Committee of the University of Minnesota Board of Regents. Good morning, everyone. Thank you to those who are joining us via the live stream video and those attending in our boardroom here on the Twin Cities campus and via Zoom. Let me also welcome our student representatives today, Vera Borowski and Caleb Massey, both from the Twin Cities campus, so welcome. The first item of business is to act on the proposed plan for the university enrollment. Joining Provost Ritter to take us through the changes made since it was reviewed at our April meeting is Vice President for Communications, Chris Gotti, and Vice President for Strategic Initiatives, Ryan Schmiesing. Before we turn to the presenters, President Cunningham, would you like to provide some framing remarks?
Thank you, Chair Johnson. Last July, the Board of Regents identified the university enrollment plan as a top priority. And as you'll hear from Provost Ritter and Vice President Schmiesing, we have made really significant progress on this plan. As I've shared before, our focus remains on attracting, retaining, and preparing students to grow and strengthen Minnesota's future workforce. To do this, we're investing in enrollment and unifying our enrollment strategy across all 5 of our campuses. While each campus has a distinctive mission, we're moving it forward with unified voice across the university. To lead this process, we're hiring a Vice President of Enrollment Management, as the board requested, and investing in substantial resources at each campus to implement the plan laid out. By unifying our approach and expanding our capacity in high-demand fields, we're ensuring the University of Minnesota remains the primary economic engine for the state. Thank you to the board for your unwavering support and partnership in making this priority a reality. And thank you to Provost Ritter, Vice President Schmiesing, and all of the campus chancellors for their leadership, and to the entire team across the university that's advancing this important work. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. We'll do the motion. Please begin your presentation.
Thank you, Chair Johnson. So today we're pleased to bring before the Committee for Action the University Enrollment Plan that represents all of our campuses and their undergraduate on-campus student populations. Recruitment, enrollment, and retention are the strategies and structures that support its success as a priority at the University of Minnesota, as evidenced by our strategic roadmap, Elevate Extraordinary 2030. And as the President has indicated, there's no more important work that we're doing right now than this plan. Our success in this area means that we are positively contributing to the future of Minnesota and beyond in meeting our obligations to graduating students who are ready to enter the workforce, pursue additional education, or start their own businesses. Next slide, please. As we have shared, the resulting plan before you today is the culmination of many, many months of work from individuals all across the university and our 5 campuses. As we highlight the changes from last meeting's presentation, I want to note that chancellors or vice chancellors are here and ready to respond to any specific questions about their campus that you may have. I would now like to turn it over to Ryan Schmiesing, Vice President of Strategic Initiatives, and Chris Gotti, Vice President of Communications, to share a brief update on the plan and work being undertaken to develop an integrated enrollment marketing strategy. Importantly, while this strategy will advance the University of Minnesota, it will be implemented in a manner that also allows each campus to advance their priorities within the plan.
Vice President Schmiesing.
Thank you, Provost Ritter, Chair Johnson, and members of the committee. First, I want to take a moment to remind everyone of the timeline and major milestones of this particular initiative. The project did kick off a year ago with extensive data review and organizing, with the bulk of the work happening last fall semester. Earlier this year, as reports and recommendations became clear, Campuses have been actively developing plans, making changes, and strengthening current initiatives and processes as the recruitment and enrollment cycles continue. As we finished up the review and campus plans came into focus, guided by the university-wide recommendations, we remained anchored to these goals. In short, we seek to stabilize and grow enrollment, be a place for any Minnesotan meeting qualifications, strengthening processes and technology, having an integrated enrollment marketing strategy, and creating alignment to open more opportunities for our students. Since our last meeting, the changes to the plan have been relatively minimal. We have clarified in the document that this plan focuses on undergraduate degree-seeking students only. While we do have an online presence, this document focuses on on-campus students, as separately we will be addressing online students as we develop and launch a new online strategy. Finally, we refined target enrollment numbers and moved to ranges rather than absolute numbers, which is a more common way to approach from a planning perspective. With that, I'll turn it over to Chris Gotti, Vice President of Communications.
Vice President Gotti.
Thank you, Chair Johnson, Regents, and Ryan. Just an update on the simultaneous work we're doing across the university relative to the complementary enrollment marketing strategy. We've been meeting across the organization, including representatives of admissions, enrollment, and marketing communications on all 5 campuses. We've solidified our objectives of this overall enrollment marketing strategy that will complement the work that's being done overall on enrollment planning. Key elements: unified, integrated, and measurable in terms of our overall enrollment marketing strategy, ensuring what our roles and who's responsible for what, identifying priorities to grow market share and expand pools of interest, both demographically and geographically, and ensuring that each campus can shine forth with its unique distinctiveness, but also complementing that to what is unique and distinctive about the University of Minnesota broadly. And then really continuing to work in partnership with each campus to advance their individual strategy, but move the university broadly in total. We've landed on a theme. This is not a tagline. This is a theme for being future ready and the unique ability of the University of Minnesota to ensure that students across the university are equipped to really not only survive but thrive in what's ahead and carry with them the unique experience of the University of Minnesota, the campus they are part of, to really thrive going forward and being future ready. This is a theme that is resonating across this integrated work group that we're going to build out much more fully. Again, a reminder that's a unifying theme, but it will be distinctive by campus. And that's part of the process we're underway with now in bringing that to life. There are many overall elements to this. We're working to build awareness across existing areas of focus geographically and demographically, but really now we're really focusing energy on how do we expand the pool of geographic locations, demographic interest groups that are associated with each of the campuses so that we can expand the pool of interest and really develop the creative assets that will appeal to those different segments of the audiences. There are a variety of channels we're exploring, including, of course, paid social, but a broad range of those. For each of those sets of activities, what are the measurements we will put forth to achieve the outcomes that are aligned on the far right? We've made substantial progress. We have a lot more work to do. We're merging into the traffic of the enrollment marketing strategies that are underway as we start the next academic cycle. We'll phase this in, but very much are focused on how do we segment and advance individual campus strategies, but the university in total.
Got one more. So thanks to both of you. And I will say that, I've had the privilege of visiting all the campuses, all the schools and colleges this past year. Each of them has their own strengths. Each of them has their own particular offerings. Each of them has their own student culture. And at the same time, I think we benefit from our connections to each other. And that is, I think, at the heart of how we're approaching and thinking about this enrollment strategy plan. It's, I think, going to be not only a great benefit to the university, but a great benefit to the state, and really helps us in our commitment to helping to drive the workforce in the state as well. So we hope that this plan will allow us to anticipate the future needs of the state while preparing our students both for career success, but also to be active contributors to their communities. Chair Johnson, that concludes my remarks, and we're happy to respond to any questions.
Well, thank you for the work of the provost and our two vice presidents and everybody who participated in this. Before we turn to our discussion, is there a motion to approve on behalf of the board the university enrollment plan?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Regent Turner. Is there a second?
Second.
Who was the second? Oh, second by Regent Lugar. All right. Now, is there any discussion? Regent Turner.
Thank you, Chair Johnson. I had the privilege of being at the Morris graduation ceremony, and so then be able to have a kind of an in-depth discussion about enrollment with the chancellor. And one strategy that surprised that it's being resurrected, but going to all the high schools and just like getting out there geographically and just hitting all of that. I mean, I naively thought that maybe that was being done all along, but just wondering if that particular, are each of the universities kind of taking each other's suggestions? I don't know as you need to go to all the high schools in the metro area, but
Thank you.
but go for it. It's a long list of them. But I thought that was the most productive from my standpoint. Maybe it's because bedside care, just go right to the people. Is that a strategy that's maybe being used everywhere?
I'm happy to say something about it. I think the strategies are a little different by campus, and I don't know if Michael wants to speak to why this has been so valuable and important for Morris, but a version of what you're talking about, I actually think is a great strategy for the Twin Cities campus when we think about actually international recruitment, of being strategic, of thinking about how you make connections in high schools, how you talk to parents, how you focus on places that have some of our alumni as part of that kind of an effort too.
Right. There you are.
Oh, sorry. I note that Chancellor Rodriguez has joined the panel, and welcome. And I'm guessing you have something to add to that?
Just briefly, Chair Johnson and Regent Turner, we so appreciated the time you spent with us at the Morris campus. In part, I think it was a conversation that we had as new chancellor. In part, it was developing relationships with the school leaders across the region. The Morris campus was for a long time the destination college for much of that part of Minnesota. We've lost a little bit of that. So part of it is just trying to resurface, reinvigorate those relationships and connections, just to make sure that we all know what we're all going for. And there are so many common goals and common missions that just need to be surfaced, and just to be intentional and strategic and relational. And you're right, the bedside manner is critical with schools across the region.
Regent Turner.
I would say, having been chair of my school's PTA at the time, or whatever you want to call it, I mean, I hope you all take it a little step further and go into these schools and go into the parent groups. They all have a parent group. So take it one step, not just saying howdy doody to the principal and then leaving it at that.
Again, Chair Johnson and Regent Turner, I will take all the tips that you can send. I'm making note of that. Thank you so much.
Ryan, did you want to add something?
But the only thing I would add is I would echo what the provost said is we'll see more of these strategies emerge as campuses develop their plans. You'll see them in high schools in various ways. You'll see a lot of other strategies emerge that maybe we thought were happening or need to be just elevated as campuses work. But no doubt we're going to be in high schools and community colleges and other places across the state.
Regent Goldberg, Lugar.
Thank you, Chair Johnson. And really, I have a comment, and that is I am really pleased to see a proactive, results-oriented approach system-wide, and yet giving space for each of the campuses to have their unique qualities highlighted. I think this is terrific. There are metrics, and taking this in a forward-looking way, I just think is really a terrific way to approach this.
Thank you. Regent Hipsch.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And to echo Regent Lugar's comments, I couldn't agree more. I mean, the numbers are great, the metrics are great, and now the biggest thing is to get to those numbers, to achieve them. I mean, that's the number one thing we're trying to do here. I mean, we can't do mission without students. So, I mean, that's where the one thing we have to nail on is get the students coming to campus. So, thank you for this approach. I love it. So, yeah.
Thank you, Regent Hipsch. Any other questions or comments from the board before we take a vote? All right. There being no further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. The motion is approved. Thank you very much, Vice Presidents. Next item is a discussion of online learning programs and the progress being made to develop an online learning hub. To present on this topic, we welcome Eric Watkins, Vice Provost for Distributed Learning, Megan Bell, Associate Vice Chancellor on the Crookston campus, and Mary Zelmer Brun, Carlson School of Management, Associate Dean for MBA and MS programs on the Twin Cities campus. But first, Provost Ritter, would you please like to tee up this item?
Thank you, Chair Johnson and members of the committee. And let me also thank our presenters for returning to present on this very important topic. Could we advance to the next slide, please? Our presentation will highlight the efforts of the university is currently undertaking to develop a comprehensive online learning hub. As you may recall, the Elevate Extraordinary 2030 strategic plan specifically mentions the need to build upon and expand access to online learning, regardless of campus, to serve the needs of both students and lifelong learners. And I will just comment that there's so much benefit that we can gain from this in terms of our ability to provide opportunities to folks who cannot pursue those opportunities if they are only residential, and our ability also to do things that are collaborative across our campuses, and finally, economically, for us to both reach and enroll new students. I'm pleased to welcome Associate Vice Chancellor Bell from the Crookston campus, Carlson's Associate Dean Zelmer Brun, to highlight some of the current offerings and programs in the online learning spaces across their schools and campuses. Vice Provost Watkins will follow them with an overview of the work being done to further develop the overall university offerings. With that, I turn it over to Dr. Bell.
Good morning, Chair Johnson and members of the Mission Fulfillment Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here today. I'm going to begin by giving you some background about the University of Minnesota Crookston's online programs, as well as some background about myself before I talk to you about our approach. In May of 2001, we had our first graduate complete an online bachelor's degree, so 25 years of online degrees at the University of Minnesota Crookston. Today, we have 19 fully online majors and 21 minors, and our seat count of 10,527 students represents our last 3 terms, summer 2024 through spring 2025. That's the most currently available data. And in our recent accreditation from the Higher Learning Commission, importantly, they recognize that our courses meet the requirements for frequent and substantive interaction. This is a key component of online education and distinguishing online education from correspondence education. I personally delivered my first online class in 2007. And typically in my faculty role, prior to becoming the Associate Vice Chancellor, I was teaching 2 to 3 classes per semester online, along with a mirrored load on campus. I've earned Quality Matters certifications, both as a reviewer and master reviewer, and that means I participated in review teams, and I led review teams looking at online courses across the country. In fall of 2025, my course was the first to be certified by the University of Minnesota Quality Matters review process, and it met the Quality Matters Foundational Design Standard. As the Associate Vice Chancellor of Business, Arts, and Education, I oversee 2 departments, Business and Humanities, Social Sciences, and Education. These 2 departments offer 15 of the 19 online programs that are available through the University of Minnesota Crookston. Next, on the next slide, I'll talk to you about the University of Minnesota Crookston approach. You'll hear on our campus, students say, small campus, big degree. There's a lot of pride in being able to be a part of the small campus that Crookston can offer and being a member of the big U of M degree. And so we have that reflected in our online educational experience as well. There's a lot of connection to that tagline. To enforce or to meet the small campus big degree approach, we meet the unique needs of our online students who are often older than average. They're returning to complete a degree oftentimes. They might be seeking career opportunities or advancement, often supported through their employer. And many of our students online are working full-time and have families of their own. So needless to say, they have full lives. So to meet their needs, we offer our courses through asynchronous delivery, meaning that our students can engage in their courses anytime, day or night, weekdays or weekends, whenever it fits into their schedules. One thing that's important, although the mode of delivery is different, asynchronous versus being in a physical classroom, we're offering equivalent for coursework. The online space is enriched by faculty teaching those loads that are split between campus and online courses, because what's happening in our campus environment or online environment is informing the other learning space. This creates a rich and robust learning environment for both campus students and online students. We also have a high quality standard at the University of Minnesota Crookston. It's something we've taken a lot of time and effort to develop and take a lot of pride in. Our courses go through an internal quality review process. Typically, this pre-delivery course review is completed when there's a new course offered, when we have a first-time course offering with a new instructor, or there's been a substantive change or 3 or more years since the last review. This means that we start with a high level of quality and we maintain that through a continuous improvement approach. So we're not just starting with that standard and just kind of letting it get stagnant. We're building on that and always looking to improve. Our faculty play a major role in course design and instruction. The majority of our courses are developed by the faculty members themselves who are teaching the courses. They're deep in their Canvas course sites, preparing content and figuring out how they want their online course environment to exist. Just like we create our campus physical classroom learning environment, the faculty are deeply engaged in creating that same environment for our online students. So we don't have a team of instructional designers, but our faculty work with technology support and do that work and are deeply invested in the design and development. Lastly, I want to talk to you about student support. It's important because our online students are offered the same student support services appropriate for the online modality as our campus students. So they have robust advising with professional advisors. They receive academic support with tutoring, access to our writing center, our library resources, disability resource center access where appropriate, care team referrals when our faculty see that they maybe need a little bit of extra help or support, and counseling services. We've also implemented an online student orientation and registration program. We call this SOAR, and it's required for all online students. So they're acclimated to the online learning environment before they begin their first day of class. The last area I'll talk about under student support is student and faculty rapport. Our students online feel a deep connection to the university and the University of Minnesota Crookston. On the Crookston campus, we pride ourselves in our access that students have to faculty, and this is the same online. There's mentoring and support all along the way. Many students come to the physical campus for the first time when they walk at commencement, and as you saw on the first slide, the image there is graduation, and that group that you saw on screen was the faculty and professional advising staff, along with the students who have come to Crookston, many of them for the first time, getting a handshake and congratulations, meeting their faculty member, and getting that small campus big degree experience in person in Crookston. So this is a concise overview of the comprehensive online learning experience that we've developed at the University of Minnesota Crookston over the last 25 years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, thank you, Chair Johnson and members of the Mission Fulfillment Committee. I am going to share some of our experiences at Minnesota Carlson, and as I begin, I just want to put a little bit of a backdrop into our kind of environmental context and competitive context. So one thing I think that's really quite important to know in the graduate management education space, particularly the MBA space, is that this is a brutally competitive environment. We now have over 600 online MBA programs that students have to choose from. And I've put a little timeline just for the Big Ten alone, because many of us are going to be familiar with the Big Ten business schools. And what this timeline shows you is that business schools have been doing this since 2016. And the range of price points is quite large. So we have incredibly good business schools offering fully online degrees from about $25,000 to $30,000 all the way up to Michigan at close to $140,000. And we compete at Minnesota Carlson in kind of the upper end of that. We also know that employer trends have changed with respect to the fact that learning and development investments have declined seriously. We've had big research projects that I've been involved in to understand that many organizations no longer support much training, especially at the lower to mid-level of managers. So it means that there's actually still quite a lot of demand for this education, but students are now self-pay. The organizations don't support degree payment any longer. And so the demand for ROI is extremely high, and the competition for students in this space is very intense. So what about our journey? So we've actually been in the online space since about 2018 with fully online MBA program, and we have multiple degrees now. And I should say that our focus is really the graduate space, not undergrad. We do have select undergraduate courses available, but really we're in the graduate space. We bring in about 200 to 250 new students a year into these various programs. But what did this take for us? It took serious investment for us. And for us, when we launched this, we started with instructional designers and information technology professionals with about 6 FTEs. And serious, similar to what Dr. Bell said, serious faculty investment as well. But we also engaged in a relationship with an external partner to extend our reach with marketing, financial resources, and FTEs, approximately 6 more FTEs there, and as well as recruiting FTEs. And I would say that right now it's a pretty good approximation that there's about 26 FTEs working for us in this space. So that gives you the idea of the investment it's taken for us as one college to be competitive in this space. So I think it's great that Dr. Bell shared what it sounds like to invest, that the great quality can look like. I thought it would be helpful to show a little bit what this looks like in terms of excellence, because I do believe that's what we deliver. We want really consistent, easy to navigate learning management system. We do that through Canvas. So consistency across all courses so students know where to look for things, what's due when, et cetera. We want what we call evergreen, high production quality video content. So by evergreen, this is faculty can go into a studio and they can produce this content and they use it for multiple years. But this is combined with sort of desktop, real-time, updated things so that every semester there's sort of live content coming that's refreshed. Also, we want to make sure there's not just passive consumption. It's not a correspondence course. So there are kind of comprehension checks and other things built in so students are engaging with the content. We also have live synchronous student-to-faculty engagement. This is typically not required, but offered every week so that there's opportunities for students to get to know each other and get to know their faculty. And finally, we want pedagogically sound, engaging assignments that are student to student and student to each other, often with some group projects. So to summarize, what do we take away from this learning? So what I can say is, dabbling won't do it. The market is saturated, and if you build it, they won't come. So if we just put out online programming, we didn't just suddenly have a lot more enrollment. This is why we ended up engaging with an external partner, and that was involving revenue share, and it was a significant investment to do that because we simply could not reach that number of FTEs in our own budgeting to be able to provide what we needed. I wouldn't really call us a late mover, but we were later than some. And schools like Kelly and Indiana have been in this for 30 years, and they're very successful with 2,000 plus students in this space. Our brand and faculty excellence isn't enough to just put things out there and have an expectation that people will come and enroll. This does require massive investment. A second theme is that this is still very, very important to consider for our impact on our workforce. It is true that both our own experience and research in the industry is that people are still pretty local in these programs. Despite the fact that this is online, there are very few national reach schools. Kelly's one of them, but our enrollees still are about 90% Minnesotan. So what I would say that we have big impact on the Elevate Extraordinaire Imperative 3, which is our workforce development. This is really quite important for us. So it's important that people have that connection and that, University of Minnesota, it does matter in terms of the students. The third, however, is that people really want that connection, but they demand the return on investment and they demand flexibility. And this has led us to review a comprehensive review of our program and really redesign our entire program that will launch in 2027, and it's not exclusively online. It's in fact a professional MBA program that students can take classes in person because many are relatively local, and they can, if they want, complete this fully online. But we've invested and will invest seriously in on-campus residencies and other ways to elevate that connectivity to us and provide the networking that these students really want as well with each other and with our corporate partners, for example. So I would say in conclusion that these changes and enhancement are representative of the ongoing reinvestment improvement that is necessary to stay competitive in this space. And I think really endemic, I think, of what we have to do to be excellent in online. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Johnson, for having us here today in the Regents. Now that we've heard about the good work going on in Crookston and Minnesota Carlson and some of the opportunities and challenges in online learning programs at the university, I want to talk about the potential for an online learning hub. Imagine a hub that connects learners of all types with non-credit and credit academic programs throughout the university. So currently, the Office of Distributed Learning manages the website that's shown here, online.umn.edu. This is a place, sort of a directory where students can, potential learners can find non-credit and credit programs. However, we have not invested in marketing, specifically in the online space for UMN Online. We do take inquiries through the website, but then those inquiries are just given to the programs. There's not a sort of nurturing of those inquiries as they come from the website to the program. At the university, we have, if you count all the fully online programs and then those programs that are what we call predominantly online, so they're mostly online and maybe there's a small in-person component, there's about just short of 3,000 students at the university who are in those kind of programs. And if you count just fully online, it would be about 2,000. And reflective of the conversation we just had, most of the undergraduates are at Crookston. There's a few at Duluth as well. And then at the graduate level, most of them are in the Twin Cities, mostly in professional master's programs similar to the MBA that you heard about, but there's also some at Duluth. Our office has a service called Online Program Support Services. The idea here is that when you think about building a new online program or scaling enrollments, there's a lot of things you have to think about, and those are listed here. Our office can play a coordinating role. A lot of those functions exist at the university, but they might be located in different departments that are outside of where the academic unit of interest is. And then we can also connect with external partners when necessary, when there's something that's not available at the university. Highlight a couple of the things that I think are really important for creating and building online programs. One is market research. It's really important to know that the students are there, that this is going to be financially sustainable and have a good positive impact on the state. And then also connecting academic units with resources and partners for marketing. Program level marketing, especially at the professional graduate space, as you just heard about Carlson, is critically important. Now I'm going to highlight a couple of university-wide programs that I think show the potential for what we can do online working across campuses. So the first one is a effort to, is focused on licensing more special education teachers. I'm sure many of you have read about that major shortage in our workforce here in Minnesota. This is led by the College of Education and Human Development here in the Twin Cities, but they're also a partner with education faculty in Duluth and Morris and Crookston. And the idea is working together as a system, can we build an effort to have these apprentices in Minnesota school districts learning online as they move towards getting the credentials for special education. This effort is fairly new and it's going very well, growing each year. The nice thing about it is there's a lot of resources available to cover tuition for students from the state and other sources. Another university-wide effort is what we call Restart Your Degree. This is focused on those students who have left the university or stopped out from the university at some point without a degree. There's a large population of these students across the country and in Minnesota. Estimates in Minnesota of students who have some credits but do not have a credential is about 600,000, so there's a lot of students in this situation. What we did here was we coordinated across all 5 campuses to invite back a set of these stopped out students to enroll in a number of re-enroll in a number of programs, many of them online, and then provide them with additional support, support provided through academic advising, enrollment advising, and wellness. We were partnered with both CFANS and CCAPS on doing this work. And so far, we're a couple years in, it's had a really nice impact. About 100 students have re-enrolled, and we've had 75 students cleared for graduation that wouldn't have been otherwise. So I'm going to shift back to the idea of an online learning hub. So why might we want to do this? One is to optimize brand awareness. So we want to get to a point where, especially in Minnesota, when people are looking for online programs, they first think of the University of Minnesota. I don't think that's necessarily the case in all programs right here. They're going out of state for those online programs on occasion. And we want to be able to leverage some of the existing resources we have that you've heard about today, like coordinate and learn from each other to sort of maximize the impact, accelerate program innovation, look for those opportunities where we can grow enrollments and impact in the online space. Create awareness for some of the quality standard guidelines that you've heard about today. Make sure that all units at the university have access to this knowledge and share best practices for quality. Improve the student experience for online students, as was mentioned earlier. And also having a robust online presence can provide flexibility for residential students that might not be able to always come to campus due to life circumstances, so the better degree completion there. And then, of course, we want to grow enrollments and have more impact on the state through meeting workforce needs. When thinking about an online learning hub, it's useful to look at examples from other institutions. So I've listed 3 here. There's many others. I thought these 3 were useful for us. I want to especially highlight Indiana University, another Big Ten school. They have a similar sort of geographic reality with a large central main campus and then several campuses around the state. And they have done an excellent job, I think, of growing enrollments. You can see they're over 10,000 now, and that's grown at a nice pace. Done a good job of growing enrollments in a way that benefits all of the campuses in the entire university system, and I think it's a good model for how we can think about sort of strategic growth in enrollments that benefits all of our campuses. So what could an online learning hub provide? Well, some of the strategic growth that I've talked about in both non-credit and credit programs. There's a lot of opportunities in non-credit that we might not be taking advantage of. More marketing the brand, more visibility for online programs at the University of Minnesota in coordination, of course, with other marketing efforts here at the university. I mentioned before this enrollment support. When we get inquiries and interest from students, how can we help nurture that lead to get to enrollment at the program level? Helping reduce risk and especially help with market research is critical. And then some of these external vendors that we might need to use occasionally, if we can manage those relationships, it's just less burden on the academic unit on the colleges or the campuses. Of course, there's importantly things that academic units should retain. Curricular autonomy. These are programs that exist in colleges and campuses. The faculty teach these programs and deliver these programs. We're trying to just help them to be sustainable and have more impact. We want this to be flexible so that units that want to really grow in the online space can, and those units that want to take a slower path can also do that. We're not dictating sort of goals for individual programs. Any efforts that happen in an online learning hub should also not be duplicative. They should work in such a way that they're enhancing the work that's going on in our colleges and campuses and our overall marketing efforts, for instance. Online program support services is something that units can engage with, but they don't have to. But all units will benefit from a larger visibility for university online programs. And we want to make sure if there's marketing going on in individual campuses or colleges that that also is something that we build off of and not duplicate. As we move forward with thinking about an online learning hub, there's a number of decisions that have to be made. So how do we balance market and mission? It's important to always keep the mission of the university in mind and not only look at programs that can make a lot of money, right? They need to still fit the mission of the university. We want to think about how do we optimize a university-wide program. I mentioned before that we've got pockets of excellence in online education. How can we spread that throughout the university? We want to make sure that an online learning hub does not negatively impact academic unit identity. I think Minnesota Carlson is a great example of a big brand here at the university. We want to make sure we take advantage of that. As I've mentioned several times, and I think it's a key thing, we want to elevate excellence and experience, make sure that we're maintaining the quality that's expected of a University of Minnesota education. And we want to allow units to be agile in this space and also help them reduce risk through data-driven decision-making and market research and consultation as needed. So that's it for our presentation, and I'd love to hear more about your thoughts about online programs at the university.
Thank you very much to the panel. And I had the experience of starting 2 graduate programs online at the University of Minnesota Duluth. We started in 2011, and the professors were complaining about the poor quality of, I said, I guarantee you things are going to get better as the years roll by, because I started as a lawyer with a black phone with a curly it was plugged into the wall, and they had a hard time understanding that. But the the technology got better. But what we discovered when we were developing this program, we went out and talked to Indian tribes about if we created a master's degree in tribal administration and governance, what would you like to see? And to my surprise, they all wanted it to be online. We ended up then getting Native Americans from Oklahoma, California, Canada, enrolling the program, which is still thriving. And we started a second one on natural resources issues, on matters on reservations and how to manage those. And so those have both been very successful. And then we started an undergrad online. And precisely what Associate Vice Chancellor Bell was saying, these are folks that had stopped out of school for a while, and I think the average age for our students was about 40. So I've seen this rise, and I brought it up at a Regents meeting a couple of years ago, and I specifically talked about Indiana and Maryland's global campus. And I thought, is this going to be the future of education, or at least part of what we do here? And I'm just wondering, for Provost Watkins, and I guess all three of you, when it comes to training professors on how to do this well, do we have a program for that?
Thank you, Chair Johnson, for those comments. Yes, so the university provides very good faculty development through the Center for Educational Innovation, and they manage the Quality Matters program that Professor Bell talked about. So there are a lot of professional development opportunities, and I think this is an example where, especially in those spaces where there's been a lot of online program development and course development, like being able to learn from the faculty at Crookston, for instance, that are doing this work is really valuable for the other units around campus. I don't know, Professor Bell, if you want to add any comments.
Something with our quality assurance program is it's common for new faculty to sit in on those meetings at the beginning of their time at the university, so they have examples and models. It's also quite common for faculty to share with other faculty a course shell if it's a class they've taught and developed. So we have sharing of knowledge and mentorship for quality assurance.
Thank you.
If I may add, we've created a 1-hour course that anybody who's designing a new online course will take. This is for any faculty member. And of course, we tell them about the Center for Educational Innovation resources as well, and connect people with other mentors as faculty.
Great, thank you. Regent Gully.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the presenters. I wanted to echo Chair Johnson's own experience and say that I actually started my teaching career at the University of Minnesota in the online space back in 2011 or 12, I can't quite remember. So I was one of the early adopters to teaching online, and I believe that it's incredibly important, and I'm excited to see the innovations in this. I just wanted to, encourage a couple of things, and I've heard some of this in the presentation, but especially because I expect that, I was a contract faculty member teaching in the online space, and I guessing that a lot of the other faculty who are teaching online are also term faculty, contract faculty. So I just wanted to make sure that I'm encouraging that especially contract faculty have access to professional development opportunities. I know I did the Quality Matters certification. It was incredibly helpful. But also paid collaboration efforts. So I appreciate that there's mentoring. I think it's really important that, especially for term faculty or contract faculty who are paid by the class, that those opportunities come with some kind of pay, because otherwise they're really difficult to take advantage of and they are limited to certain people. And that we also are thinking about how we can use the online learning hub, which I'm really excited to hear about, to capture people who are maybe thinking about a mid-career transition, especially as we know that we are coming into this coming into this AI space where we're worried about people losing their jobs, I think this could be a great opportunity to capture students who are interested in changing careers after they've well since finished undergrad. So thank you.
Thanks, Regent Kelly. President Cunningham.
Hi, thank you. First of all, thank you all so much for all the amazing work you've done. And Regent Gully, I mean, just the fact that you were doing this in 2011 speaks to how long the university has had good footprint in this market, and obviously with Crookston. And this is just a tremendous opportunity and another way that we're really moving ahead with our roadmap and how we think about the future of comprehensive online learning strategy for the university, from our high school students all the way through our senior citizens and our business community, and how we really are a resource for all of the community, as we should be here locally in Minnesota for lifelong learning and education. So it's a really exciting time, and I want to thank you for all the groundwork here that you've laid and the great information today.
Regent Hipsch.
Thank you, Chair Johnson. I really commend this project very much. I'd like to really talk about going down the road less travel. I know there's a lot of MBA programs because that's the common one that everyone takes online, and great. But, Masters of Agriculture, there's very few. But there's some really nationally acclaimed masters, and that would really appeal to a lot of people in ag that live across the state. Law degrees. There's very few online law only degrees. I think Mitchell has one, but public health, that I know we have something there, but I had two of my three children got their masters, got their undergraduate here, and they got their masters. My daughter at Johns Hopkins in public health, and my son at Penn State in engineering. So I really encourage this. I think it's going to be a huge source of revenue going forward, and Godspeed on it. So we need to get going really fast and take it on. So thank you.
And I would just note quickly, if I could, that both our law school and our School of Public Health have online offerings.
Okay.
Thank you. Regent Turner.
I just want to make a comment about, I believe it in the Carlson School, when you mentioned that the fact that the education that we used to get, and I have to speak from the hospital, but it's from the employer, is not there anymore. When I first started the workforce in the 70s and 80s, I mean, that was a given, that you were educated when you became managers. I mean, I look at managers in my own hospital that they're on their own. They get their job title and then they're on their own and know nothing about managing. Like I said, my world is a smaller world, but I'm sure it's the same everywhere. So I just had to tag that, because I think our employers have really abdicated their responsibilities to their employers or their employees by not educating. But thank you, the university, for picking up the slack.
So yes, Chair Johnson and Regent Turner, I appreciate you calling that out. And I think what our research shows is that it's the pressures of the corporate reality that their budgets are strained and they invest less. And I think it's just also the both sides of the employment contract in terms of the churn. Employees don't stay at organizations the way they used to, and employers don't support their employees the way they used to, so that investment doesn't happen. And so it means that, right, they will invest in a certain level. It's usually the higher level employees. Kind of lower level people moving into managerial and leadership roles aren't supported in the same way. And also, what used to happen is that more support for advanced degrees so that people could go and get this education used to happen. And even now, the sort of tax deductible tuition reimbursement is disappearing almost everywhere. And those monies are being invested in more targeted development if the organization can use those dollars. So again, it means people desperately need this training, but they're on their own to spend these dollars. So the competition and what they expect is just ratcheting up more and more and more, and what they look for in terms of quality and flexibility is just higher and higher and higher.
Thank you. Regent Hines.
Thank you. I'm way out of the demographic for this, and I very much appreciate your efforts. And because of my age, I don't really understand it. The idea of sitting with a computer for an education seems kind of, frankly, depressing to me. I mean, if I had to do it, I don't think I could stand it. But anyway, would it be more attractive to have programs that offer a week or some period on campus where you can interact, have some of the excitement of, working together with your faculty? Is that something that makes any sense or not?
Chair Johnson, Regent Hines, yeah, that's a good point. So we have a lot of those sort of programs at the university that are sort of, we call them hybrid programs, but there's some component online and some in person, and it kind of, you can shift it one way or the other. And there's a lot of opportunities there too. So like what we're talking about is not just fully online programs, but there's those opportunities as well. And it sort of depends on the type of student and the program. Is it, Regent Gawley mentioned a mid-career transition, that might be different. Are they local? There's certain disciplines too, maybe let's say agriculture, for example, Regent Hipsch mentioned, that you maybe have to have some in-person component for certain aspects of agriculture, right? But you can still deliver quite a bit of it online to make it flexible and accessible for a greater population of learners.
Thank you. President Cunningham.
If I may, Chair Johnson and Regent Hines, as we look to a declining 18-year-old demographic, and we look to more traditional, non-traditional learners as part of a full enrollment strategy and plan, the kind of flexibility that is mentioned here allows not only 18-year-olds and typical college students to engage, but also allows the full range of the non-traditional learners to really engage and get that higher education component and training, upskilling, credentialing. And so is an increasingly big, important part of consideration of any modern enrollment strategy, so if that helps.
And if I may also, thank you, President Cunningham and Chair Johnson and Regent Hines. I think call out the fact that I mentioned and had to do that rather quickly, that we had a distinct online MBA and a distinct part-time MBA. And what we discovered over time was that because, again, providing an online degree did not expand a national reach for us to an extent. I mean, we expanded some reach in terms of enrollments a little bit further outside the Twin Cities, people who didn't have to travel as much. But what we discovered is many people chose to enroll in the part-time program because they still desired some in person if they could work it in their schedule. They don't love to come down to the Twin Cities campus. They're working professionals, they're juggling families, they're juggling their jobs. But they chose that, but they still took 80% of their credits online. And so our redesigned program is one professional MBA degree that people can complete fully online, fully in person, but they can also do this blend if they'd like. So I think your intuition is correct. I'd also say that it's also why the online offerings need to be exceptional, right? They need to be very, very engaging and very well done, because it should not just be a sense of passive learning at a computer. There should be these engaging elements with your faculty, with your other students, so you are connected. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the panel? Provost Ritter, I think, has some closing remarks.
My thanks to the panel for great presentations. Just to give you a sense, so we've gotten some reflections on where we are and some thoughts about where we're headed. This new online hub will serve all of the elements that we've just talked about: undergraduate, graduate, professional, alternative credentials, micro-credentials, certificates. It will give us an opportunity to be more agile in our offerings, which I think is incredibly important. It's intended to serve all parts of the state. It's also intended to serve all our schools and colleges and all of our campuses, right? It's going to be a resource to each of them. As you can hear, several of the schools have external partners now. We want to respect that, and we want to be a competitive alternative when those contracts come back up, is the way we're thinking about it. And finally, two of the elements that we will be building and sorting through is a governance structure for this, to make sure that there's some standardization in our approaches, to make sure that we're able to distinguish in cases where more than one unit comes forward with an idea, how we prioritize in that case. And then the second thing that we've got to decide in an equitable and appropriate way is what's the sustainable budget model? You got a little bit of a sense from Eric's presentation that there are different options there, and making sure that we build this in a way that is supportive of our core mission and our different campuses is going to be key. Thank you.
Thank you, Provost. And I want to thank the panel, a very interesting presentation. We appreciate it. Thank you. Our next item is an overview of current policy and potential opportunities related to faculty appointments. Presenting this item are Provost Ritter and Vice Provost for Faculty and Academic Affairs, Beth Lewis. Provost Ritter, please proceed. And we're actually right on time.
Amazing. Thank you, Chair Johnson and members of the committee. Today, Vice Provost Lewis and I are here to share some important background regarding our faculty and instructor appointment structures. And I will say a couple of core things to keep in mind as we go into this. And that is that our contract faculty, our lecturers, our teaching specialists at the University of Minnesota, they're core to our mission. They are a big part of our educational excellence, and at the heart of the work that we are hoping to do here is a recognition that those colleagues need to be supported appropriately. They deserve that, and our students deserve it as well. There is, however, a lack of congruence right now between our practices and our policy. And that tension is what we're seeking to address. To sustain our educational excellence, we need to acknowledge that we're part of a competitive national market for skilled educators in this category. As a university, we're working collaboratively to modernize our faculty structure so that it better reflects today's academic workforce, while firmly supporting the essential long-term contributions of our career faculty. And then the last thing I'll say by way of background is that the purpose of today's presentation is not to tell you exactly where we think we need to go. I'm not bringing forward a proposal today. What I'm doing is giving you a sense of what the need is, and then also some of our goals in terms of the work ahead. So the goal of this presentation is to provide the board with an overview of policy challenges and opportunities in regard to our broad category of employees who belong to the university faculty. A second goal of the presentation is to outline possible reforms to the policies governing faculty appointments. And before we turn to those, I will ask Vice Provost Lewis to briefly review our current structure and how we compare to our Big Ten peers.
As was discussed in the February board meeting, we have various types of faculty at the University of Minnesota who play different roles depending on their background, expertise, and our degree. The majority of university faculty are tenure system faculty who engage in research, teaching, and service. Similar to other universities, we also have term faculty who typically specialize in one or two areas, including teaching, clinical, and research. We also have lecturers and teaching specialists who primarily engage in teaching and are considered academic professionals. In this presentation, we will focus on policy challenges specifically related to teaching faculty. So all of our Big Ten peers have tenure system faculty. They generally also have career faculty who are not on the tenure track, who are in a variety of different roles. There are typically specific tracks that include teaching, research, and clinical tracks. The tracks are clearly defined. There are specific guidelines for promotion, and oftentimes job security increases through multi-year contracts as they are promoted. So how does this compare to the University of Minnesota? Term faculty exist at the University of Minnesota, but there are challenges. For example, tracks are not clearly defined. There's no clearly defined teaching track, and the faculty policy requires that these appointments need to be justified annually after 7 years of appointment. Before we talk about these challenges, let's take a quick look at 2 examples from the Big Ten. So first, we have the University of Illinois. In addition to their tenure system faculty, they have what's called specialized faculty who have clearly defined roles, including teaching, research, clinical, and visiting faculty tracks. Similarly, in addition to tenure track faculty, The Ohio State University has research, clinical, teaching, and professional practice tracks. These faculty receive multi-year contracts that increase in length as a faculty member is promoted. They also have associated faculty that includes various appointments such as lectures. The major advantage of these examples is that there are clear guidelines when certain tracks should be used, and the appointments are designed to be career-long. And at that, I'll hand it back over to Provost Ritter.
Okay, so let's transition to our policy. So within our policy, this is the Regents policy on faculty appointments, which is referred to as the faculty tenure policy. And in that policy, a policy that was developed in the 1940s, there are 2 categories of faculty identified. One is referred to as regular, that's the tenure track stream, and the other is referred to as term appointed faculty. And if you look at the policy carefully, it's clear that at the time, there was no imagination that these term faculty would be a significant part of the university, that they would likely just be temporary, and so on. Next slide, please. And here, in fact, are the specifications for an appropriate use of term appointments. It does identify the opportunity to have term appointments for clinical health faculty, which is, of course, a great thing. But one of the things you'll see if you look through this list is there's no opportunity to appoint someone whose focus is teaching. Okay. Given that, we've had some challenges in addressing our need to have specialized teaching faculty. And the next slide, please. What it has done is it's created a lot of challenges for us. The policy overall has not been really fully revisited or revised with regard to the non-tenure track faculty in the ways that the vast majority of our peers have done. It does not reflect the current higher educational landscape that typically includes, as Vice Provost Lewis has said, not only tenure track faculty, but teaching faculty, clinical faculty, research scientist faculty. It is also the case under our policy that we do almost the opposite of what our peers do. Namely, if you have been here as a term faculty member for more than 6 years, your position has to be rejustified every year. Exactly. And of course, term faculty who teach, they're vital to our mission. They're often career faculty, but they're not specifically allowed under this policy. So one of the things that has happened over time is that a different category in our employment categories, the professional and administrative category, was used to create positions for lecturers and teaching specialists. And there's been a lot of good work done there, and those titles are certainly used and important. The problem is that, given this policy, we can't officially call them faculty, right? Which leads me to the next slide, which outlines the challenges related to the current faculty tenure policy. First, policy was written in 45, and faculty appointments have changed a lot over the last few decades. It does not reflect the current landscape. There's a need to modernize the policy. Another, I'm sorry, I'm repeating some of the things we just talked about. This is an issue that's been addressed in a variety of shared governance contexts. It's something that's been pointed out repeatedly, and yet no significant change has yet occurred. One of the things that we've done instead is we've just worked around the restrictions in the current policy. I think it's time for us to go beyond that and to create a policy that both meets our needs and honors and supports and recognizes these important faculty colleagues. And I'll turn it back to Beth.
Yes, as Provost Ritter stated, just a little bit more context on the creative solutions. In 1980, the university created the Academic Professional and Administrative Staff Employee Group. So this was a way to address the 7-year rule. And so at this point in time is when the P&A lecturers and teaching specialist positions were created, and there are considered academic professionals. And as Provost Ritter said, there are options for clinical faculty that are written in the faculty tenure policy under Section 3.4. And in our institution, I'd like to also note that some other academic professionals are afforded continuous appointments, such as librarians. Just to touch a little bit on some of the previous work that has been done, there has been numerous efforts from shared governance groups over the past 5 years. These examples have included the workforce reinvestment resolution, which was done with both administration and governance both. Originally, the workforce reinvestment was originally put forward by shared governance, and then work has been done with administration and shared governance since then. There's been the Term Faculty and Academic Professionals Subcommittee of the Senate Committee on Faculty Affairs. And most recently, the Provost Contract Faculty Lecturers and Teaching Specialists Task Force, which completed the work in May, just this past month, and then submitted a report. And this report specifically calls for implementing a new faculty structure that includes either what could be called career or specialized faculty. And many of these recommendations are consistent, that came from this report, that are consistent with what is being outlined in this presentation. And this report was done after a very extensive consultation process with numerous groups, including contract faculty, teaching specialists and lecturers, deans, associate deans, faculty, and shared governance. And with that, I will turn it back over to Provost Ritter to talk about the goals moving forward.
So you see the case for the need. You see that there's been kind of numerous reports and efforts pointing to a desire for reform. The goals, I think, of where we want to head next is to revise this policy structure so that we can allow for the following: career tracks that are specifically defined, that include specified standards for appointment, that include opportunities for promotion. Due process rights related to academic freedom. Because of some of the issues with how the policy is written. There is some confusion about the academic freedom rights of instructors and contract faculty. They clearly have academic freedom rights, but we have not specified the due process that is available to them to protect him. Appropriate governance rights, what does that mean? It means, for instance, if you are a career teaching faculty member, you should be fully included in governance around curriculum. It means mechanisms for multi-year contracts. Instead of saying, but when you get to your 7th year, we go to 1-year contracts, you say, you know, we start with shorter contracts, you go to longer contracts. When it becomes clear that you're a strong contributor, we go to rolling multi-year contracts. And finally, and this speaks to one of the points that Regent Gully raised in relation to the last presentation, of course, we should be providing professional development opportunities to our teaching faculty who make such a significant contribution, and we want them to have opportunities to grow and contribute to our various campuses. Finally, I will say that all of this needs to be done, has to be done in a context of shared governance. That's specified in the policy itself, right? So the policy itself says that if you're going to amend the policy, you have to make sure that any proposal is considered by 3 committees within our faculty senate and then by the full faculty senate. And what I have said to some of our colleagues in shared governance is, the way I read this is, we need to agree on what we're bringing forward, and that's how we're going to get it done.
Thank you. And to start our discussion, let me first turn to President Cunningham to share some comments.
Thank you, Chair Johnson, and thank you, Provost Ritter, for that really clear conversation here. I first want to start out by commending Provost Ritter in even her short time here. This has clearly been a problem and kind of a web of tangled confusion and workarounds that has been a third whale to be touched for a decade or more. And I commend her for digging in and working with shared governance to really try to untangle this to do what's best for our contract faculty. I really want to reiterate, our contract faculty, lecturers, and teaching specialists deserve our recognition and our support, and the policies that guide their work are an incredibly important focus of our educational mission. Every single person at this university who works here has a role, regardless of their title and their exact track, and that role is critical to us completing our full mission. The university is working to create the faculty structure that best reflects today's academic workforce. I appreciate the 1945 dates that were in here. As we come up on a century, I hope that we will be in a different place, while recognizing and supporting the essential contributions of our career faculty. The central challenge again here is that policy and practice governing non-tenure track faculty and instructor appointments and promotion aren't consistent across the university. To address that challenge, our overarching goals, and I just really want to reiterate here as presidential support for this work the provost is doing, creating common standards for appointment and ranks, extending multi-year contracts, providing clear protection for academic freedom and appropriate governance rights, which are important for everybody that teaches at the university, and offering professional development opportunities. Today's presentation provided important background to the issue. Following our principles of shared governance, we will work together to develop a policy proposal in partnership with the faculty and present it at an upcoming meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Regent Turner.
First of all, I'd like to, some of the concerns that have been brought to me, and one of them is about shared governance, so I feel very relieved that both of you have verbalized the importance of the shared, 2 years ago, I didn't know what shared governance was, so, but it appears to be very important in the higher ed. And so that was one concern, is that they don't have the impression that this has just come from, you woke up one night and decided to do this as the provost, that it's all coming from the home office and not a part of the shared governance. So I'm very relieved that you know, you said 3 committees and all that kind of stuff. The academic freedom is another thing, is that it's supposedly the way it's written now, you've got academic freedom as long as you're doing research, but if you're just teaching in the classroom, you know, it's not real clear that you have the same academic freedom. I reject that concept. Hopefully you all do too. So is that another thing? I heard you mention it, but if you could make that really clear, because that seems to be a huge concern.
100%. Thank you for bringing it up, Regent Turner. Academic freedom covers research and teaching, and it covers it for academic specialists doing the work. It's not just for tenured or tenure-track faculty, right? It is for those who have the training and expertise and are doing the work. There is some confusion in our policy, and it took me a while to kind of understand where that came from, and here's what I've uncovered. If you read, I have read and reread many times, our policy about faculty appointments, one of the things you end up noticing is there's a preface to the policy that strongly roots academic freedom in tenure. It's actually inconsistent with our policy in other areas, right? It's inconsistent with the rest of the policy that follows, that does not specify that academic freedom only resides in tenure. It turns out that preface was added during what's referred to as the tenure wars of the 90s, at a time when people were feeling very protective of tenure. And of course, we have to be very protective of tenure. It is critical to the success of this university, no question about it. But that does not mean that our contract faculty, our librarians, our instructors, our research scientists, all have academic freedom rights. What we need to do to help make that clearer is we need to specify the process by which they can say, hey, my academic freedom rights were challenged, and I want some of my peers to help judge that complaint.
Okay. And we're working on that.
Yep.
Thank you. Regent Bergstrom, and then Regent Gully, and then Regent Hines.
Thank you, Chair Johnson, Provost Ritter, Vice Provost Lewis. So a further question to that regarding the shared governance piece. A few of us had the chance to chat with some of the Senate Consultative Committee leaders, and I just want to, I believe they were alluding to this matter when they talked about this coming year, and obviously we are happy to support them in any way, but this sounds sneakily easy. I'm guessing it's not, because I thought they alluded to having to, one of the committees is the tenure, that has to relate to the tenure code, which is always something that draws attention. Is that part of this? And
yeah.
How can we be,
Thank
in
you.
your process of developing this, how can we be helpful?
So thank you for that question and that comment. And let me respond in a couple of ways. We all know that the last few years have not been kind to shared governance around the country. And there is distrust as a result of that. So there's no doubt that if I say, or the president says, or Beth Lewis says, let's work together and move this forward, people are going to wonder, do we really mean it? And there's a lot of trust building that we're engaged in, that we will continue to be engaged in. And in fairness, we have years of reports and resolutions that have not resulted in significant change. So I understand it. At the same time, we have years of reports and resolutions. And I think the time is for us to work on moving forward. One of the things that you note implicitly in the way that you ask the question is that the policy at the heart of this is referred to as the faculty tenure policy. That's misleading because it refers to both tenure track and non-tenure track faculty. My own view is that a more appropriate title would be Faculty Appointments, Promotion, and Tenure Policy.
Thank you. Regent Gully disappeared for a second. There you are.
I'm so sorry. I had someone walk up behind me. I just wanted to say thank you so much for this. And I had a chance to talk to Provost Ritter yesterday about this. And so I've sort of expressed my own experiences with this. And I think we're going to continue talking. And I just really appreciate the effort. I will say it's both validating and very strange to feel like this is something that I've been raising for a decade and a half, and then to sort of like hear it reflected back to me in a way that feels like, again, both validating and also like we haven't even been willing to acknowledge it for such a long time. And so I'm grateful, and I'm really hopeful that we can make progress on this because it's incredibly important. I just wanted to raise a couple of things. So these might be included in the proposal, but just was thinking about the goals. So as far as growth, and actually across the board, I would love to see, and I think that this is included, but I just want to at least like echo this and raise how important this is. Consistency is key because across different departments, they have very, very different policies and very, very different ways of doing contracts. And so in some departments, contract faculty are treated in one way, in other departments, they're treated in a completely different way. Professional development is like codified in some places, and in other places it can be arbitrarily taken away from year to year or taken away by a department lead who suddenly doesn't like the person, or so any like consistency is really, really important. I'd love for us to address the fact that many of our contract faculty have no way to appeal when something is going wrong in their departments. I had real pay issues the whole time that I was working in my department, and there was never anyone to talk to outside of my department, or it wasn't clear who I would even go to address the issues that I was having. And so giving contract faculty some way of addressing workplace issues outside of their departments would be very impactful. Pay should be better than grad students. It's sort of insulting to finish your graduate degree and then find out that you're going to get paid less and get less benefits as a contract faculty member than you did as a graduate student. And I'm happy that we've improved our pay for graduate students, and I think we should absolutely match that increase for contract faculty. And then I just want to echo how important it is to work with faculty on these issues. And I know you're already doing that, but especially impacted faculty, because we have a lot of faculty who really have made a career at the university as term faculty members and have a lot to say about the ways that we could change things. And it's incredibly important that we work with folks. Yeah, I'll leave it there. Thank you. Appreciate it.
So let me thank you, Regent Gully, for your leadership and commitment to this. I know it's been a long road and we've got further to go, but you have absolutely been identifying an important issue that we need to address and improve. I agree with you in terms of consistency. I uncovered the same thing, same titles being used in entirely different ways. I agree with you about professional development. I think that's critical. I agree with you about due process, right? I think that's really important. And I think part of what you get at there as well is that the way our structure is currently put together, it does not afford recognition and support in the way that we should be providing it to folks. In terms of the issues that you raise about pay, I would note that the president has made a very strong commitment to addressing pay and workforce issues across both staff and faculty, and that there has been real attention recently through the workforce redevelopment efforts to start with some of our colleagues who are in this category. There is more work to be done. It will take us a while to really get to where we need to be, but you're calling out an important issue. And then finally, working with faculty on this is exactly right. In addition to working with the faculty senate committees, we've done focus groups, we've come before the P&A Senate as well, and that's the right way to do it. So thank you.
President Cunningham, and then we have a couple more folks from the panel.
Thank you, Provost Ritter, and thank you, Regent Gully, for, I think, your strong advocacy that really highlighted for me and my team over these past 2 years the need to really pay attention to this group of faculty in particular. You know, with that is one of the reasons this board last year approved the Workforce Reinvestment Fund that is now part of our budget. The first component of that fund this year that will be allocated, obviously we can't fix get everyone's salary up to the right level at the same time. We have to do it by targeted groups. The first group that is targeted for that reinvestment this year is indeed contract faculty, acknowledging exactly what you said to be correct in terms of where they had been for market and why it's so important to work to get them to market. This first investment will not fix everything, but it is, I think, a good faith effort to definitely work towards taking a portion of the budget and putting it towards some of those whose pay has been most impacted inappropriately over time. So thank you so much for your advocacy and for your continued work to bring this attention to the team and I.
Thank you. Regent Hines.
Thank you. Well, this certainly sounds a very sensible approach to treating all of the people who work here in a consistent and rational manner, and I, certainly commend that and the clarity of your presentation. Perhaps this is another question of old age, I guess. I don't really understand how there's a distinction made. I mean, if I get a degree, if I get my history degree and I want to be at the university teaching, if I'm really hot stuff, I'm tenure, and if I'm not, I'm not. I just don't get it. I don't understand it because it didn't exist when I was here.
So I think one of the ways to think about that, Regent Hines, is that when we hire folks on the tenure track, it is with an expectation of commitments and excellence in education, in research, and in public service. For many of our faculty, it also includes clinical commitments. And faculty, such as the faculty we're talking about here, are often faculty who are specialized on one portion of that, right? Who are, instead of trying to bring all of those elements together, and certainly on this campus, the expectations are quite high on the scholarship and research side, that there be achievement of national distinction in order to qualify for tenure. There are many folks who've pursued higher education who discover that where they feel they make a real contribution is in the classroom, much more than in terms of scholarship. Often they will pursue some scholarship that is very specifically related to teaching and instruction. And in fact, we do have some tenure system faculty who are what is referred to as discipline-based educational researchers, but often it's more just a focus on doing really well in the classroom and in pedagogy. And so in that regard, these are colleagues and contributors who are critical to our mission, but aren't folks who want to be judged on an up or out basis based on things like scholarship.
That answer your question, Regent?
I'm still mystified, but we can talk offline.
Okay. Representative Massey.
Thank you so much, Chair Johnson, Provost Ritter. I guess returning a little bit to the conversations around academic freedom, I'm a bit curious to know how the university is thinking about collective and associational freedoms, academic freedoms in particular, for university centers and institutes. And then also with that, if the university at all is thinking about extramural protections for public engagement, whether that's, P&A staff or faculty, tenured or not. Thank you.
So very briefly, thank you for the question. Very briefly, we have a policy at the university that protects the work of our centers and institutes in terms of their scholarship and public engagement, but distinguishes that from unit level political statements that are often confused as representing the views of the broader university. So I'm happy to talk that through with you further after this meeting, if you would like. In terms of extramural, that is, of course, one of the core areas of academic freedom, and it is also, of course, protected for our non-tenure track faculty.
Thank you. Regent Mohammed.
Thank you, Chair Johnson, and apologies. Hopefully you can hear me. I don't have much of a voice.
Oh.
So forgive me. But one of the questions that I had was really around what does successful adoption necessarily look like of this, right? I think President Cunningham, you got to this to a certain point around, contract faculty will be the initial priority, the first step around implementation of this as proposed, but really, is there anything that we're thinking about really the socialization, the adoption, and the implementation of this policy that we may see potential barriers or maybe potential risks towards implementation, right, or proper processes of implementation? Have we thought about that? And then really, what does ultimately socialization and buy-in of this look like across the enterprise?
So thank you for the question, Regent Mohammed. Yes, there will be, I think, a fair amount of work to do on some of the areas that you've specified. One of the likely possibilities of this work is that once we have reformed our policy structure around career faculty, there will be a process of enabling those who are in these P&A categories to transition to appointments that are career faculty appointments, right? So instead of lecturers and teaching specialists not being formally recognized as faculty, they would then be formally recognized as faculty. I would also note that the category will likely include, of course, other areas of specialization beyond teaching. And one way that we might think about this is to create a kind of core structure in policy that then allows for the specification of different tracks around these committed areas of contribution, like teaching, like research, like clinical. And then there will be a lot of work to do within shared governance. There will be a lot of work to do at the campus, school, and college level on determining the specifics of how all of those changes go forward.
Thank you. Regent Bergstrom.
Thank you, Chair Johnson. One more just question around the shared governance piece. I don't think it was this year. I think it was last year. I believe the Faculty Senate established a couple of task force, maybe they called them, around these issues. And so I don't know how far that is down the road, but within the shared governance piece that we keep talking about and the reality of, I liked how you phrased it, very delicately phrased it, the reality of mistrust around some of that at most universities. So I'm curious how far those task forces are down the path, and how can we, the administration, but also the regents, help kind of with the mistrust piece and kind of just being present perhaps, or what have you? Because I know we're all willing to work on that.
Yeah, thank you for that question as well, Regent Bergstrom. So there have been, as I've suggested, multiple task forces, multiple resolutions in this most current effort dating back at least to 2021. And you are correct that a resolution was passed a couple of months ago to create 2 new task forces in this space. As well, it also said, let's see what comes out of the task force that Beth Lewis is leading. Let's, try to create space for collaboration. Those new task forces that were called for are still very much in the process of forming. And we will participate, support, be in dialogue with those efforts as well. That said, I'm hesitant to continue on what I might describe as academic time, and think it is time for us to say, we've learned enough, let's start working towards reform. I think one of the things that our regents could do is encourage everyone involved to work together on an agreed upon set of recommended policy changes and bring them forward to you.
Thank you. I just want to recognize myself for a minute. I talked to numerous members of the Faculty Senate as well, and they wanted to get these 2 points on the record. That any policies related to tenure and academic freedom be developed through the shared governance system. The appropriate spaces for that discussion are the Academic Freedom and Tenure Committee, the Judicial Committee, and the Senate Committee on Faculty Affairs and the Faculty Senate. We hope that you, the regents, will oppose any efforts to develop policies outside shared governments, and that you will encourage other regents and the administration to do the same. Second, that any policies related to non-tenure track faculty and librarians include clear and strong procedures for protecting the academic freedom of all employees engaged in teaching or research. The AAUP position is that tenure is the only system for protecting academic freedom. If alternatives to tenure are proposed for employees who engage in teaching or research, those alternatives must include clear mechanisms for protecting academic freedom. So I just wanted to get that on the record. Thanks. Any other questions or comments or closing comments? Regent Turner.
At the risk of sounding flippant, I appreciate everything that you said, and I'm so glad that you wrote it down and said all of their concerns, and I agree with them. However, how many years have we gone where we've had committees and task force and suggestions and no change has happened? And I know when I listened, I was more like, okay, how long does this take? I mean, I'm all for 2 more task force, but just to get a flavor of how long each task, it seems like 3 years is the task force kind of thing around here. And I don't have a lot of patience for that. I mean, if you're gonna, task force, then these task forces need to commit to, all right, we're gonna meet for the next 6 times within a 3-month period, not just lackadaisical kind of, this is just me, the nurse, going, there's no way that, you know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense. So I wanna put that out there as far as, I'm not here to change higher ed, God forbid, but this whole task force and shared governance and stuff, is there a way to get it more streamlined and focused and disciplined so that things you can have the shared governance, but so we can do it with a purpose and a discipline? Is that too much to ask?
Regent Turner, personally, I don't believe it is so much to ask. I think that it is, I will tell you, I am concerned about the potential time added to some proposed pathways for addressing these concerns. However, a couple of things need to be made clear. The policy itself guarantees a shared governance approach to any changes to this policy. It must go through AFT. It must go through the Judicial Committee. It must go through the Senate Committee on Faculty Affairs. That is already built in, right? I would love for us, and I think it's happening in fits and starts, and it's going to take continued work in both directions to say, let's sit down and get it done.
Yes, President Cunningham.
Johnson, and I think Regent Bergstrom, to your question as to what the board can do. I do think our faculty are keenly aware, all of our faculty, regardless of what track they're in, every day in the paper, that there are challenges around the country to academic freedom, and that we value academic freedom here for everyone that is doing their research and scholarship. And I appreciate this board's support of that broadly in the past, and I think the more that you and your conversations can reassure our community that this is indeed something we value and will continue to hold firm on, is something that would help us all build trust across shared governance and in our community.
Thank you. Anything else on this topic? Thank you, and I'm sorry you didn't get a chance to say much, but.
Oh, that's good. All good.
Thank you.
Move on to the consent report, and don't let me forget the informational items. Next, we'll consider the consent report. Provost Ritter, will you summarize the items in today's report?
Yes, thank you, Chair Johnson. I'm pleased to present the consent report for your consideration. That includes three main items this month. First, there's the academic program report, which includes new academic programs, programs that have requested changes, and programs that are being discontinued. One change of note that I know you will speak to is the change for the Duluth campus to become the academic degree granting home for our water resource science degree programs that are shared across a couple of the campuses, pending approval by the Higher Learning Commission. And this is a change for reasons that I know you will elaborate that we should all celebrate. Finally, the report includes the conferral of tenure on 2 new faculty positions. Consent report is presented for your consideration with my and the President's recommendation for approval. I am happy to answer any questions you may have. That concludes my remarks.
Thank you, Provost. Before I invite a motion to approve the consent report, you are welcome to ask questions, make comments, or ask that any item be separated out from the report or voted on separately. Are there any questions, comments, or requests to separate an item out? And I'm going to, as the Provost said, I want to comment on the UMD matter, if that's okay. So this PhD program at UMD, the WRS program, is a successful, long-standing interdisciplinary program involving faculty and scientists from 8 departments and 3 research universities at UMD, and 13 departments and 2 research centers at UMTC. It provides exceptional master's and doctoral training in subjects with significant student demand and employment opportunities. UMD's growing research activity in aquatic sciences, spanning its research centers, the Large Lakes Observatory, the Minnesota Sea Grant, and the Natural Resources Research Institute, and academic departments has brought the center of gravity to WRS to Duluth. Bringing the administration home to UMD campus aligns with this evolution. This will be the first PhD granted by UMD, so it's historic. The UMD faculty and scientists have a proven track record of supporting doctoral programs in WRS. This proposal would formally recognize that effort. It is a step in UMD's movement towards an RT Carnegie classification. Sustaining a robust program in water resource science is aligned with the multiple elements of UMD's strategic pathway and of the Elevate Extraordinary 2030 plans. The WRS's innovative curriculum leverages the University of Minnesota's unique research facilities to foster student research and discovery foundational to the stewardship of lakes, streams, and groundwaters in Minnesota and globally. So I hope this goes through, and it's very important for the university and UMD. So any other questions, comments on the consent report? Is there a motion on behalf of the board regarding the consent report? Oh, Regent Hips, you want to say something?
No, I want to move.
Oh, you're moving. Okay, thanks. Is there a second? Second by Regent Johnson. Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The motion is approved. Thank you. Now, the informational items. Provost Rither, anything to highlight?
Thank you, Chair Johnson. So the sole informational item is a report noting select accomplishments and awards for our faculty, staff, and students, which for me is always a joy to read. I will just call out a couple of them for today. One is a large grant, $5.5 million grant from the USDA to the College of Veterinary Medicine on the Poultry Innovation Grand Challenge. It is intended to address highly pathogenic avian influenza. Incredibly important work, and incredibly important work, of course, for our state in particular, given our role in turkey production, among other things. And then the other item I will call out is a large grant to our School of Nursing from the Bedford Foundation that is intended to support more students from more modest backgrounds pursuing nursing, which is also something for all of us to celebrate. Thank you.
Thank you, Provost Ritter. Any questions or comments? There being no additional business before the committee, we stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone.